Hello and welcome to the Northeast Grazing and Livestock Conference. I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, the National Grazing Lands Coalition, American Farmland Trust, Farm Credit East, Morrison Custom Feeds, Natural Resource Conservation Service, and the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. Please take a moment to visit their virtual booths for more information about their work. I'd also like to thank our partners, the Cedar Tree Foundation and the Forrest C. and Francis H. Latner Foundation. They help make our work possible throughout the year. The entire New England Grazing Network would like to thank you for your participation in our first annual Northeast Grazing and Livestock Conference. Enjoy the conference.
Thank you so much, Mary Ellen.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Colleen. Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Franklin. I'm the Ed Coordinator for the Vermont Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship Program. I've been in this role since August of 2018. Prior to that, I had helped manage my family's organic dairy in Guilford, Vermont, where I monitored the pastures and planned the season's grazing using grazing charts. I also milked, did all of the breeding, and my share of the herd health work, chores, and field work. Oh yes, and then there was the bookkeeping. So anyway, let's see, I just wanted to let you know that I'm not from a farming background. And I met a college roommate of mine is who introduced me to dairy. I went home for a weekend to her farm, and from there, I don't know, I sort of got like, that was my bolt of lightning. That was the smells of that barn, the manure, the silage, the cows, just kind of swept me away, and I knew what I wanted to do forever. And I got a job on a farm that summer, and it was like a job where you did a little bit of everything. And the herds person on that farm advised me, well, what you should do is get a job on this certain farm, and she could get me a job there and learn how to run heavy equipment and feed cows and feed calves and raise calves, and then go to another farm. And I just sort of took that prescription for learning how to educate myself about all of the different facets of the work that goes on farms and running them. And I, since learning about this program and this apprenticeship, Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship, I just always wondered that if I had something like this program, that I think it would have been really attractive to me, and it would have gotten me off to, I think, a much quicker start than all of the moving around I did and learning from different people. Not that that didn't work, but that's what Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship really is all about. Tell you a little bit about it. Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship is the first apprenticeship of its kind in ag, and that it is recognized by the Department of Labor. It's a 2-year, 4,000-hour paid apprenticeship with 3,700 hours of work on a farm and 300 hours that is comprised of 5 online courses, which include milk quality, dairy cattle nutrition, feeds and feeding, managed grazing systems for dairy cattle health and wellness, and farm business management. The balance of the hours are made up by the apprentices attending workshops, conferences, pasture walks, discussion groups, and the like. And that is the classes are offered on a unique platform that that Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship that has developed, called the Managed Grazing Innovation Center. And we can talk a little bit more about that later on. Now I want to turn to the panel that we have here today. We actually have a graduate of the program, a journey worker who is Corinne Carey. Zander Dhondt is over a year into the program as an apprentice. Stephen Dolan is in Maine and also a year into the apprentice and has his own unique story about wanting to transition onto the farm that he's on. And Delaney is just started in July. So thank you all for being willing to do this with us today. If you could introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your background and where you are now, that would be great. Corinne, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Corinne. I did my 2-year apprenticeship program in Freeport, Maine at Wolf's Neck Center. I graduated in March of 2021 and really enjoyed the program. Learned a lot. I think my favorite thing was getting AI certified and learning how to breed cows. I'm currently using what I learned a lot here on my new job in Newberry, Vermont as the herds person at Four Corners Farm. Really enjoying breeding cows and working on my conception rate. We're milking about 20 cows in a tie stall barn. I just really enjoy herd health and caring for all the cows and learning new things every day. But I definitely think the DGA program taught me a lot, and I don't know where I would be without that program today.
Yeah, thank you. Zander?
I'm about 1.5 years into the program. I started last year at a farm in New York where I did a little bit of everything, and then they were getting ready to retire, and they retired this fall, and now I've moved on to a new farm. I'm just trying to learn what I can and become dairy farmer.
Nice. Stephen?
Yeah, Stephen Dolan, currently apprenticing on a dairy farm in Maine, as Mary Ellen said. I worked on a number of small diversified farms in pasture-based livestock, as well as organic fruit and vegetable production, mostly on the West Coast, far northern California to Southern Oregon, and into the eastern parts of those states. So we're in a much different climate here in Maine. And the experiences that I had were good for learning, but there wasn't too many opportunities to actually acquire land or a farm to start. And that's been a desire of mine, is to own and operate a farm. And found the Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship program and thought it would be a great opportunity to learn from somebody who's doing it successfully. And as Mary Ellen said, I did find a unique situation. I am finding it is actually more common than I thought, where the older generation wants to see their farm carried on and don't have a lot of opportunities. And someone like me not having an opportunity to get started, found it was a good match. So I am currently working towards a possible succession plan here on this farm, where after the 2-year program period, after the graduation, we would look at possibly taking over the farm and working on a succession plan.
Nice, nice. Zander messaged that Delaney is stuck as an attendee. I'm sorry to interrupt. But just
No.
letting the background people know. Colleen, thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yep, and I skipped over Glenda, and Glenda Pereira is the education coordinator in Maine, and Stephen Dolan is one of her apprentices that she is keeping track of and monitoring and one thing and another. And Glenda, please introduce yourself because you're much more than that.
Yes, thanks, Mary Ellen. So I am the Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship Education Coordinator in Maine, as well as the Statewide Dairy Specialist for the University of Maine. And I have been the Education Coordinator for a little bit over a year, so a lot to learn from my colleagues like Mary Ellen and some others sprinkled across the United States. And I'm really looking to learn about the other apprentices in Vermont and from you, Corinne, too, because I know you had a great experience here. So thanks, everybody, for your participation.
Hi, Delaney. We've just gone through people introducing themselves. Glad to see you back. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, hi. So my name is Delaney Tirrell. I am originally from Connecticut, and I graduated high school last year. And then I immediately decided that I wanted to do this apprenticeship, and I moved here to Vermont like a month after I graduated. And I've been here ever since, basically just learning about how the farm works, how dairy works, and kind of getting my foot in the world of dairy because I also did dairy 4-H in Connecticut. And so that's where I kind of got the inspiration to kind of get deeper into it. And so that's where I am now.
Nice. All right, thank you. Well, I guess a question for everyone, because one of the things that Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship is trying to figure out is how to get the word out about dairy grazing, this apprenticeship. So how did you hear about DGA? And do you have any recommendations of how we could get the word to more young people? Corinne?
So I found DGA through researching online. I was looking for a hands-on program after high school and just came across it online, and then found Wolf's Neck Center, which is where I did my apprenticeship program. So just pretty much Google searching, and then made connections in person with people. And I think social media and online and emails really make people aware of the program.
Uh-huh. Now, I remember your employer, must have been you when you were in high school, you worked on a beef farm in New Hampshire. That he contacted me. That was the first person to contact me when I had the job back in September of 2018, and talked about you and wondering if you would, might be interested in the program, and you were. Did you always work on that beef farm? Like from the time you were 16, or always interested in animals and cows?
Well, I didn't really get into farming until I was about like 17, like the end of high school. And that's when I started working on that beef farm, which was pretty local to where I was living at the time. And my boss at that beef farm was trying to help me find some sort of program that I could look into after I finished high school.
I'm glad you found dairy.
Yeah, me too.
How about you, Zander?
I worked at a farm right out of high school for about a month. And when I left, they suggested that I try looking into this grazing apprenticeship. I worked in childcare for about 6 months before I found a place to work, and that's how I found it.
Uh-huh. And that was for the Browns in New York State?
Yeah. I went up and worked at, boy, I can't remember what. Anyhow, I went up Birdsall. There we go. Moved up to Birdsall after I found them and stayed there for about 1.5 years, and now I'm in Vermont.
Uh-huh. Nice. How about you, Stephen? Way over there in California, you found DGA.
Yeah, I found it through an internet search.
Okay.
I created a profile and began contacting and being contacted by the farmers.
And you have a
Up until-
family?
I do, yes.
Uh-huh.
We have 4 children, and they are 8 months to 6 years old.
Wow. That's quite a family.
Oh, yeah,
Nice.
Yeah.
And they enjoy
Great.
being on the farm?
they do. They love it, and I couldn't imagine a better life for them.
Oh, it's
They have
great.
their own little chores, and they have lots of space to run around and be young boys.
Uh-huh. Nice. Delaney.
I actually had it recommended to me through a teacher at my high school because she knew I wanted to go into ag of some sort, but I didn't necessarily want to go to college yet. So she was looking up internships and stuff, and that's how she found it.
Uh-huh. Well, that's great. Let's see. Has it been what you expected to be? And why or why not? Anyone want to go first? We can go in order, or okay, Corinne. You said it was, right?
Sure, yeah, I'll go first. So yes, I would say it was what I expected for the most part. But there was a lot of other animals on the farm that I also got to get experience with. Like lambing season, that was new to me, and I was helping with that a lot. Sometimes we would have to pull the babies out, or we had one that we had to bottle feed because his mother kind of rejected him. And then we also did a lot of broiler chickens and raised them on pasture. And I really enjoyed that and saw how much money broilers can bring in and how fast they grow. And then we did laying hens and sold the eggs on farm. And I kind of liked learning how you can have all these different things on a farm that bring in money. And it's kind of good to have like a separate thing that brings in your money other than just dairy.
Diversity.
Yeah, diversity.
Did you process the broilers as well?
We did the first time, yeah, when I was there in the beginning, and then we started sending them to the slaughterhouse.
Zander?
I didn't really have any expectations for the program. I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't expect to be changing farms halfway through, because you don't expect someone to retire, but I've learned a lot. I've expanded my knowledge base quite a bit. I think it helps get your employers rather than them putting you in one spot, it helps make it so that they try to train you in multiple areas, theoretically.
Uh-huh. And you're at a point where you actually have done all your work hours. Enough hours.
The work hours are done. The schoolwork is got to get done. I think I'm going to be done with the schoolwork next spring or something because of the way the course work is framed. You can't do it. You've got to like do 2 semesters at once or something like that.
Yeah, it looks like it's, you take the course this spring and then your final course in the fall. Yep. So, but you're still enjoying your time on farm? And you like the new one? Is it fun to see? Is it fun to see?
I miss my cows,
Oh, okay.
but yeah, I like the new place.
You did a lot of milking?
Milked every day, twice a day, pretty much for a year and a half.
And where did your cows go?
They got split up quite a bit. Big group of them got sold and sent up to Vermont. Here, we sold a lot of backyard cows because we were having trouble selling the cows in general. My bosses wanted to have someone take over the operation, but I couldn't run the operation on my own. And no, it was only a 40 cow dairy, so it was not really a desirable farm or something along those lines.
And Stephen?
Yes, I had a pretty good idea of what I was getting myself into. I had the opportunity of establishing a relationship with the farmers that we're working with. I didn't say it, we're on Springside Farms in Western Maine, and we're working with Randall and Jill Bates.
Okay.
And yeah, we got to get to know them before we committed, and I had some experience with within the dairy industry. I helped. I was working for a private contractor that did quality control for most of the major dairies throughout the entire state of California. So I got to experience what it was like working in the large dairies. Maine is different in that a lot of the smaller farms have been preserved, and I really enjoyed that. The curriculum part is not something I had much experience with. The online learning, that was new to me. So I didn't have much of an expectation there, but so far with Glenda's help, it's gone pretty well, I think.
Well, that's good to hear.
And you're getting good grades, so that's what matters.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot to that online learning. Again, I've never done it, and I actually honestly am just getting through the orientation and had to get a hold of the woman, Jessica, who's in charge of it all, and say, like, why does it say I only have like 60% done? You have to watch all the videos and you have to like check all the boxes and stuff. And yeah, it takes getting used to. Yep. It's good for you.
Yep.
And Delaney, how about you?
I kind of had an idea of what I was getting into because I had been involved in dairy for like 5 or 6 years before this. But it definitely kind of put me on the path that like, this is what I want as my career in the future. So that was something that I didn't realize necessarily before the program.
Do you think you'll do anything you haven't mentioned that you like to show?
Oh yes, I do love to show.
Yeah, and
Yes.
and landed. on a farm where they do show cattle, so that's
Yeah.
been a perk of being at Cobb Hill.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Have you or Zander and Delaney are both on the same farm in Heartland, Vermont, Cobb Hill Farm. And have you had any experience in the cheese yet? No, that's when the new
No.
woman comes on, correct?
Yes.
Right, and that's in
Later this month.
February.
It's actually, it might be in February, but I feel like it's this month now.
Okay, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Let's see. So you all went towards dairy farming and you all went towards grazing dairy. And I guess I just wonder, the predominant model of dairy these days is confinement dairy. Was it a conscious choice, or was it just that the apprenticeship was in grazing dairy that kind of steered you in that direction? Stephen, I'll ask you, because you were on the big farms in California, and those are confinement dairies, correct?
Yes, most of for that particular job, I think there was only one dairy that grazed that we worked on. I've worked on a few smaller, more of a hobby size farms. As far as the dairy went, they were more for not for the sale of the milk. They were producing other products, and we would just have a milk cow for personal use, or there's sure most people are familiar with the idea of herd shares. There was a couple in our community that I did have experience with, and those tended to be more geared towards grazing. I thought it was the GGA being the only apprenticeship program for dairy, I thought was quite convenient that they do focus on grazing, because that's where my interests lied. And whether it was beef or lamb or even pork or poultry, we've always tried to graze or run them through the woods or something of that. And so, yeah, that remains to be an interest of mine, grazing for dairy production.
Mm-hmm.
And was there more to that question?
No, that was it. Just kind of curious. So,
yeah.
Yep. And Corinne, do you think is that a path that you want to continue down and follow? I mean, are you convinced that it is I'll just say a good way to manage cows and one that you're sold on?
Yeah, I think so. I just think it has a lot to do with the public eye. People love seeing cows out on grass, and it has a lot of benefits to the cows. I think calving on pasture has really taught me a lot. And I enjoy seeing the cows go out to pasture that first time you let them out in the spring when they're all kicking their legs up. And I don't know, it just makes farmers happy to see their cows out on pasture, and you get the manure out on pasture, and it helps with the labor for manure and stuff like
that. Yeah, I call it grazer's grin. When cows go out on pasture and so many of the inputs go down and there's less labor and gives you time to go and do your field work and all those things that make farmers happy. So better bottom line. So Zander, are you interested in other dairy as well, or grazing dairy?
I hadn't my school didn't do grazing dairy. Had a conventional herd at my high school. So I didn't really know much about grazing dairy. We had grazing beef, but not dairy. But now that I've worked with grazing animals, I think it's a great system just in terms of labor, cost savings. I mean, when you have animals harvesting the feed, spreading the manure, and maintaining the grounds, it's a lot less work than you having to do all that yourself. It's a huge cost and labor savings. It's a lot of the time a lot better for the animals. There's less health issues. Last place I worked, they hadn't had a hoof trimmer in 30 years. You know, you don't have to pay for bedding because they're outside. It's a great system. I mean, they've evolved for thousands of years to be outside. So why not just continue on that trend rather than finding all these ways to have problems?
Were you able to watch listen to Alan Williams this morning, the keynote speaker?
No, I was shoveling snow.
Okay, well, it's recorded as part of the conference. So I really recommend that you go back if you weren't able to watch it, any of you, and listen to him. It was fascinating. It's fascinating what, they just continue to learn and figure out that makes, the whole grazing system better and more productive and healthier and better for the world we live in. So, yeah. And Delaney, you've only been here a short while and didn't really have much experience with grazing, just really going and getting the cows, right, this summer?
Yes. Yeah. So in high school, I did take a class on rotational grazing. We talked about dairy animals, but animals, just livestock in general. And then we actually had a flock of poultry at school where we grazed them rotationally. So I kind of somewhat knew about it, but this is my first time doing it with dairy animals. So it's definitely interesting to see how it does work, and it does affect the cow's production, the cow's mood, affects farmers' mood because it's less work and the cows are happier. But yeah, it's definitely nice to see it.
Definitely affects the milk and the cheese. Nice. Glenda, do you have anything you want to add or anything you want to ask them?
Sure.
Okay.
So, who would you recommend to enroll in the DGA program? And we can go with the same rotation with Corinne, Zander, Stephen, and Delaney.
I would recommend pretty much anyone who wants to just get into agriculture. I would say you don't really necessarily need a farming background or experience to join the program. When I joined, I had just had about 1.5 years experience working on a beef farm that was grass-fed. And I didn't really know anything about dairy, but I learned a lot, and I wouldn't really say there's like an specific age you have to be to join, like any age. Anyone can learn about dairy.
I'll just put the plug in that the requirements for apprentices is that they be 18 years or older and have a high school diploma or equivalent. And for the mentors, they need to have at least 5 years experience with managed intensive grazing and get 30% or more of their dry matter, their cow's dry matter from pasture during the grazing season, much like the organic standard. Okay, sorry to interrupt.
I think not necessarily based on the apprenticeship, but I think anybody who wants to work in dairy has to be at least somewhat motivated, because some people just, I mean, if you're working on a dairy farm through the DJ apprenticeship or not, you need to be able to be, you have to have a passion for it, because it's never going to be something you're going to make millions of dollars for. It has to be something you enjoy. It has to be something you want to do. And if you just want to go join the apprenticeship to just for fun, there has to be, I don't know, you've got, some people won't thrive on any farm. Just
No, I hear you, because I got swept up in it, and it's like, I don't know, no turning back. So, yeah. And I don't know, I always felt lucky that I felt that way about it, that it was something I wanted to get up and do every day. Yeah.
I think one of the great things about this program is that there's a lot of different situations. So if you're looking for a particular situation, there's a lot to choose from. You know, somebody in our situation or our mentor's situation, I think it would be a great program to connect those people. And anybody who just is looking for the experience of working on a dairy farm, there's opportunities for that as well. So I think just about anybody I might talk to who's interested in dairy farming, I would recommend it. I would emphasize that it is a commitment. You know, encouraging people to stick out at least the 2-year program. So yeah, so anybody who is interested enough to do that and pursue dairy farming or get the experience of dairy farming, I would definitely recommend it.
Thank you.
I actually am going back to my high school relatively shortly to give a talk on me going to this program, because I didn't know it existed until I found it, and my guidance counselors had never heard of it. And there's a lot of people that I know that, you know, they didn't know what to do after high school, so they just immediately went to college, and they kind of wish that they had done something like this to get more experience. So I would definitely recommend it to, you know, people who aren't really sure what they want to do yet, but they know that they have interest in it. They just don't know necessarily how to get their foot in the door. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And then I had some people specific questions, so tailored to certain apprentices. So we can start with Corinne. What are some strengths and opportunities of DGA now that you have moved on to become a journey worker? You can think about that for a little.
I think I definitely met a lot of people and made a lot of connections with different farmers. So now I have a lot of people to connect with and ask questions, like Mary Ellen and a lot of people in Maine from Wolf's Neck I still connect with and call and I'm in touch with. I think it helped me gain a lot of confidence, just being more confident with communicating and being more confident in myself. I think the classes really helped me and gave me a good base of knowledge for what I was getting into as well.
Thanks. And then we'll go in order. So Zander, what has been your experience with the coursework and how do you apply it in your day-to-day work, or even when you visit another farm, maybe asking questions, learning about what they're doing and how they're doing it differently? So how has the coursework sort of impacted what you do on a day-to-day basis?
I don't particularly learn through like textbooks, or I've taken the classes. I don't apply really anything I've learned from them to my life whatsoever. I mean, there's like a couple things, like the one thing I can remember is like from the fencing thing I took last class, a triangle, like the shape of the I'm not particularly a fan of it, but I'm sure some people learn that way. I don't learn that way.
So maybe an opportunity is to have more, a way to not always have that like online material, but maybe more in person. And that's where I think the coursework and your mentor working it comes together, right? You can have those, you learn this in your coursework, and then you can come back to your mentor and say, hey, I learned about this. What do you think? Let's have a discussion about it. I think there's definitely an opportunity there.
Yeah, one of my biggest complaints at the last place is we didn't have enough sick cows. We didn't have enough problems. Like, I really need, like, how am I supposed to apply displaced abomasum if we don't have any, like, dying animals left and right? I need more. I mean, we had one calf die last year. That was our extent of problems. It's challenging when you don't have a need to apply the things you learn.
Great problem to have. Low health problems, it's a great problem to have. So Stephen, can you discuss about what your like next 6 months to a year look like within the program, and specifically for how DGA might help you in the transition or succession planning process?
Yeah, that's a good question. So far, the last year that we've been here has been spent getting a knowledge of the land and the herd and the practices that are implemented here. And I expect more of the same over the next year. I think because of our particular situation, my mentor, I believe, plans to gradually step back and put more of the responsibility on us, which is a good thing. And as far as the particulars of the succession, I don't know. I know DGA has some resources there. It hasn't been something that we've discussed a whole lot yet, but I do expect probably in the next 6 months to the year that becoming more of a focus in our conversations.
Nice.
And then my last question for Delaney, how did you get paired up with a mentor? What was that process for you like?
So I actually had looked at quite a few places, and I did have quite a few farms contact me, and I ended up kind of going towards this farm because of the 4-H program. And at the time I was looking, I was still in 4-H. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh, it's an opportunity to, still be involved in 4-H and become a leader. And then I had looked closely at a couple other farms, but this was the one that stuck out the most to me. And when I toured it, I really liked it. And I also like that I can live on farm. So it's nice to be close to everything and be able to kind of be on call if need.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank all of you. Thanks to all of you. Guess and kind of wrapping up, I want to make sure that people who are watching and listening know that Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship is now coming up on its 11th year. And it was started by a group of grazing dairy farmers in Wisconsin who saw a need to pass, what they knew, their knowledge and their skills down to the next generation, or even people from the same generation that wanted to learn it, and not have all of their knowledge go away. It is now in 15 states. There are over 200 approved mentors. At this time, there are 31 apprentices participating. And just this past summer, we went over 50 graduates. I'm proud of these young people that have taken this up. I don't think that it's a livelihood that I think it's a livelihood that strikes a lot of young people or people as just too hard. And to find the joy in it and the I don't know, that again, going out every day and enjoying what you're doing. Corinne mentioned it. I think you're always doing different things. It's really never the same, depending on the season, depending on where the herd is at in milk, or if they're calving, or the magic. Just some baseline things. The magic program is open to everyone, not just DGA participants. And all of the material is being translated into Spanish at this time. And also that, all of these folks, they came from outside and are working on farms. But another way that this program is implemented is farmers sometimes put their own employees through it. That is a big thing that happens out in Missouri, where the New Zealand and Irish farms, big grazing dairies, seasonal herds, really make great use of this program, putting employees through it, promising employees, employees that, show like they've got the fire, that they really like what they're doing. And also there are farmers that have put, sons and daughters through this program instead of sending them, off to college to learn it. So there's many applications. It's here. I cover Vermont, but I also have a farm in New Hampshire, one in Massachusetts. I'm willing to go to Connecticut. I encourage anyone who's interested to check out the website, which is simple. You can just Google Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship, or it's dga-national.org. And all the information is there if you're interested in being a mentor farmer or an apprentice. So we're a little sooner than 1:30, but 1:22, and that's about all I have. Does anyone else want to say anything? Really, really proud of all of you and what you're doing.
Mary Ellen, I'm going to pop in, and We did have one question from the audience that
Oh,
I'm
sure.
not sure I caught, so maybe someone else didn't catch it. Can you talk a little bit to if there's a cost for the learning, cost for the apprenticeship, and if the apprentices are paid for their work during the program?
Yes, it is a requirement. It is a 2-year paid apprenticeship. The minimum is $8 an hour. All of the apprentices I've been involved with have been paid more. And also sometimes it includes housing. It can include utilities, internet. You know, the perks that come along that bump you up much further than $8 an hour. The classes are $250 each, and yeah, the young woman that's running them now there's actually a little program starting, so that just a little competition amongst the people taking the courses, that like so many points for the semester and you are entitled to like one free course. So that's one thing that they're doing. So yep.
That's great. And just to clarify, so it was a question that came up in my head. When doing the coursework is outside of the work hours that you're putting into the farmer and getting paid for, correct?
Yep, the farmer
Yeah.
has to allow enough time for the apprentices to complete their coursework, but they don't have to pay them for that time. And the same with the, workshops, conferences, discussion groups. They need the time to go to those things, to make the connections, to expand their communities, but it isn't necessary for the farmer to pay them for those hours.
All right. Well, thanks again for your time. I think that does cover the questions that weren't necessarily answered in the last 45 minutes or so. Coming up next for our conference is you can choose between 2 different workshops beginning at 2 o'clock. One is being a farmer and a whole human, balancing work, rest, and play. And then also we have a session on grazing focused work in the Northeast. So that's going to be hearing about some technical assistance providing, groups that are getting together, kind of like Vermont Grass Farmers Association or Granite State Grazers, and about the different work that they're doing. So let us know if you have any questions about the conference in the Ask Organizers Anything. And yeah, thank you so much. We'll see you at the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you.